Hello, everyone. Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Sunday, April the 21st, and I'm happy to see some of our friends already participating. Welcome, Kitty. Kitty is asking, please share about the resort you mentioned last week, but you could not find the details. All right, so the name of the resort is Jurema Branca. Hello, MKS. Welcome as well. All right, Jurema Branca. That's the Morro Branco Beach, city of Beberibe, state of Ceará, and that's in the northeast of Brazil. If you just Google, let me see if it does show up on Google. Jurema Branca, Beberibe. Yes. It actually shows a booking.com profile. I'm gonna share over here. So there you go, Kitty. That's the place that I recommend. I'm just a part of the management team. And I do spend whenever I have an opportunity, whenever I am in the Northeast, I try to spend some time in the area of Ceará. Not always in the Jurema Branca, but I do spend at least a few months per year in the state of Ceará. Okay, that's my state of choice. For several reasons, but here you go, Katie. Now you have information about the resort. All right, so just sharing some information while we get some topics of interest to our community. Recently, we are seeing an uptick, unfortunately, in fraud. Involving foreign citizens in Brazil. Not sure if you follow this subject, but not every scam related to Brazil is actually perpetrated in Brazil. There is a lot of activity by Nigerian gangs that like they pretended to be. Sometimes, like a romantic partner in Brazil, particularly for people using the dating apps. And they eventually start to share like a sad story about, something that's going to require the foreign citizen, to open their wallets. And foreign citizens, particularly from the U.S., are very generous. Sometimes they are going to, offer some assistance. And eventually, this is going to become a never-ending thing. The more you give, the more you are asked for. And eventually, you're going to realize that, there is something very wrong with the story. And that's when usually people are going to reach out to us saying, listen, I am afraid I have, fell for a scam. And I want to share, the specifics for you to let us know if it is a scam or not. And unfortunately, most often than not, it's going to be a scam. Some of our clients, they are going to want to sue the scammer, right? And unfortunately, financial losses through a scam, they are not really high. In terms of priority for the Brazilian police and authorities. So usually we're going to say, listen, you're going to be better off to file a report with the FBI because the FBI has more resources, even if the scammer is actually in Brazil, which is not always the case. But you have much higher chances of recovering your monies if you are reaching out to the FBI and not the Brazilian authorities. Okay, so just a heads up, it's not really usual for Brazilians to ask for money. And if you happen to be generous and to, gift some money, ideally the Brazilian party is not going to keep asking for more. It's just not part of our culture. If you see something like this going on, here is a warning that you could be dealing with a scammer. All right, now we have a WS. Welcome, Bill. Hi, Luciano. Birth certificates. I have the original certificates that my parents got back in 1956. Will immigration be okay with a copy of my original? Bill, if your birth certificate is original, there shouldn't be any concerns from the Brazilian immigration. However, we do have cases of authorities in the United States not authenticating, not giving you the apostille because they think the certificate is too old. Okay, so I think that instead of using the original one, which could have some like sentimental value for you, maybe you could just order a new one through VitalCheck. I'm not sure if you heard about VitalCheck. I do share every now and then. I'm sharing the link here as we speak. Usually it takes them like in average a couple of months for them to issue a new birth certificate, and then you can keep your original one and you get a new birth certificate that is going to be easier for you to authenticate before proceeding with your journey in Brazil. Okay, so my recommendation, keep your original, get a new one, and for this new one, it's not going to be difficult for you to get the apostille, and then the birth certificate plus the apostille, and you good to go. Yeah, now I see the compliment here. I would not want to give up my certificates, or would it just be better to get a new one from VitalCheck? Yeah, we were connected, right? Like you were saying, and I was saying, we are on the same page, Bill. Mario, hola, Luciano. Welcome back, Mario. Mario, I think the last time we spoke about, you shared something about a transaction, and let me know, how is the transaction going, Mario? A real estate transaction. Mario, Rony, Dio, oi Luciano, boa tarde. Welcome back, Rony. WS, Bill. Also, people need to check out the resources all about Brazil on your website. Everyone that plans on moving to Brazil should know what's going on. That's a very good tip, Bill, and it's not just to promote our content. It is actually to save people money. It is always interesting to me, like whenever we have consultations here at the firm, many of the questions we are asked, they do have answers in our resources. So it's really up to you. You can either, do some research. You can go to our website. There is a search box like on the upper right corner that you can basically use to search for whatever you want, or you can schedule a consultation. I understand some people are busy. They don't want to do any research. They just schedule a consultation and get right into their questions, and that's fine as well. But just like Bill was saying, we do have a lot of resources that could potentially answer many of your questions, okay? And by the way, if you guys could do me a favor and like our live stream, that's going to help us reach more people, and more people are going to be listening to the advisory being provided over here, and that's a nice thing to do. So please go ahead and like our live stream. Mario, can you explain the importance of having a property purchase agreement when a foreigner purchases property in Brazil, and what protections does this agreement provide? All right, so the purchase agreement is like the contract, is like the underlying contract, And the contract is naturally important because the contract is going to dictate how the transaction is going to be accomplished, right? Because for an actual, like a legal purchase and sale of a real estate to happen in Brazil, many things need to be done up front. So before you actually get to the escritura, all right, the escritura would be the closing of the real estate transaction. Before the closing, you have a lot of things that must happen. And all of those things, they need to be done in accordance with the purchase agreement. Okay, so that's why usually, we're going to hear from prospective clients, well, can't you just give me like a template, right? Like, give me a template. Give me the template that you use with your clients, right? And then we need to explain that in Brazil, transactions, they are going to be different every time. And, depending on the state, there's going to be also some level of distinction, depending on how the sellers are selling the property, right? Like if you have a couple selling the property, if you have a single seller, if this property is coming from a probate, or if this property was just purchased years ago. So all of those facts, they are going to impact on the things that are going to be required for the parties to do before the closing. And whatever you have in the contract is going to become law between the parties. A very easy to explain concept is going to be the timeline between signing the purchase agreement and the closing. So if the parties agree that the closing should happen within 30 days of signing the purchase agreement, that's what's going to happen. Like, you guys need to close in 30 days. Now, with foreign citizens, our recommendation for the timeline is usually no less than 60 days because you're going to need to provide documents, just like we were discussing. With Bill, you're going to need to present, if you're single, you're going to most likely need to present a birth certificate. It cannot be a photocopy. So Brazilian authorities, they're going to say an original birth certificate, which doesn't need to be the first one you got when you were born, but it must be like an authentic version. It cannot be a photocopy. On top of that, you're going to need an apostille, which is like a certification from the state saying that this document is legitimate. And in addition to that, you're going to need a sworn translation and a local recording of your birth certificate, so it's going to become acceptable for the closing, right? So all of those things, they are not necessary for Brazilians, because we Brazilians, like our birth certificates, they can be accessed by the registry in charge of the closing automatically most of the time. So they don't even need to order. They can access the data remotely. But of course, the registry in charge of closing, they cannot access the records for the foreign citizen remotely. Okay, so that's why you're gonna see like different steps for a transaction, including a foreign citizen, that are not going to be required when you have just Brazilians as seller and as buyers. Okay, Mario. So that's why the purchase agreement is extremely important, and it should factor all the specific aspects of your transaction. I'm going to give you another example, right? Sometimes you're going to buy a property and this property has some issues, like, the seller has open debt. The seller has debt and he's trying to sell the company, the property. And when the seller is selling a property without the certificates of clearance, meaning that he's like 100% okay with that, guess what? You open the door to liability after you buy the property, meaning that the creditors, in theory, they could come after you because you bought a property when the seller was not like 100% on top of his debt, right? Like, I mean, there was open debt, and because of that, in theory, they would have a priority over you in regards to the property. If that happens, like, you may want to have in the contract some provisions saying that the seller is going to provide, for instance, another property as collateral if someone comes after the property that you're buying, right? So, of course, this cannot be thought up front until you verify all the specifics of the transactions, but once you do it, like, you need to factor that into the purchase agreement, because unless it is in the purchase agreement, then it's not going to become binding on the parties. All right, Mario? So there you go, a couple of examples. You have a follow-up question. What if someone breaches the contract? Usually there's got to be a penalty for someone breaching the agreement. So if you said you're going to close in 30 days, but because you don't have the birth certificate, you cannot close in 30 days, guess what? The seller potentially could come after you and say, you know what? You didn't perform, and now the 10%, which happens to be usually the down payment that you're going to provide, the seller could say, you know what, I'm quitting the transaction over here, but I'm going to keep the 10% that you paid as a penalty for your lack of performance. That's usually what's going to happen. You breach the contract, the other party is going to enforce the penalty, and they could basically just say this transaction, is completed by means of lack of performance, and I'm going to keep your down payment, right? That's one of the possibilities. If it is the seller who's breaching the contract, in theory, the seller would have to return the 10% that you paid and an additional 10% as a penalty, right? So in theory, the seller would pay you double the down payment that you provided. Usually we say, listen, not really easy sometimes to do that, because then the seller could just say, well, I don't have the funds, I spent the 10% that you gave me, and then he's just going to say, well, let's try to figure something out, right? So unfortunately, it does not always work as it is expected as per the contract. And then you're going to need to make a decision in terms of, working something out with the non-performing seller, or to sue the seller to get your money back. All right, D. Gibbs. Welcome, D. Gibbs. Hi, Mr. Oliveira. Welcome, D. Gibbs. Mario said the transaction went okay, no problems. Very happy to hear that, Mario. Now we have Asim. Asim D. Welcome, Asim. Hello, Luciano. New subscriber here. Thank you for subscribing, Asim. I wish to apply for the Viper program. My first question is, can 3 people invest in a single property and apply for the program individually? And the answer is yes, Asim, as long as you have the minimum requirement met by each individual buyer, no problem at all. Okay, it's very common for us to have like a couple, it could be, like a husband and a wife, or 2 persons of the same gender buying a property for the purpose of the Viper. And as long as the property is worth at least a couple of million reais for most of Brazil, or at least 1.4 million reais for the northeast and north of the country, you could have 2 different applications based on the same acquisition. Okay, in your case, you're saying like 3 applicants. So considering these 3 applicants are all applying for the Viper, you should have a property of 3 million reais in most of Brazil, or 2.1 million reais if bought in the north or northeast of Brazil. Now, remember, if you have like a minor, right? Let's assume you are actually talking about a family, two spouses, and a minor. The minor does not need a Viper. The minor can piggyback on the Viper applications under the so-called family reunion visa. So again, if the case is like a couple of spouses and a child, the child does not need to apply for the Viper. The child can piggyback via the family reunion visa. All right, assim. Mario, what option does the buyer have if he or she has already put a down payment on the property? Yes, Mario. So that's how what I was saying. If the seller is not performing, in theory, you should ask for your down payment, or not ask. Like the seller should give you back the down payment in double. Okay, that's actually usually the legal language. Like, if the buyer does not perform, buyer is gonna lose, is gonna forfeit the down payment, and if the seller does not perform, seller is going to return the sinal, the down payment, in double. Okay, that's the language. Now, there is always a discrepancy, or there is always a gap between what the law or what the contract says and what's going to happen. Okay, because unfortunately, sometimes, Brazilians, they say, well, this is a foreign citizen. Maybe they don't have a lawyer, or, maybe it's going to be too difficult because they are not really in Brazil. They are living abroad, and then they may say, well, I don't have the money to give you back. Let's work something out, right? And then it's going to be an option for you to either accept, maybe the seller says, well, I'm going through an unexpected situation. I am unable to give you your deposit, your down payment in double, but I'm going to return just like the down payment, and maybe you should be happy with it. And then again, it's going to be a decision that you're going to need to make, if you're going to accept just the down payment, or you're going to push for a down payment in double. But then you most probably are going to need to retain an attorney to chase the seller for that purpose. All right, Ronnie D.O., where can I get the sworn translation while you're in Brazil? Ronnie, it's super easy, right? Like, my recommendation is for you to search. Like, if you are in São Paulo, for instance, you're going to do a search using Google. You're not going to search for sworn translation. You're going to use tradução juramentada. Which is like the Portuguese term, right? Like, the actual terminology for sworn translation, okay, is tradução juramentada. And you could do just tradução juramentada em São Paulo, right? If you are in São Paulo, or, just do like whatever state you are, and you're gonna most probably than not find the association of tradutores juramentados in a particular state. Okay, so I'm searching right now just to see the results. Tradução juramentada em São Paulo. And I'm seeing here a bunch of links. All right, I'm trying to see if I'm going to see. There is a bunch of providers. I'm not seeing the association, but I do see a bunch of providers. Yes, and I finally, it wasn't that high in the Google listings, but I did find the association, okay? And I'm gonna share here with you. This is the link for the Association of Sworn Translators in São Paulo, okay? If I run this search in any state, you're gonna eventually find the Association of Translators. And the good thing is that they keep a database that you can basically search for the language pair that you need, right? Like most people are gonna need English to Portuguese, but of course there are so many other language pairs, such as Italian to Portuguese, German to Portuguese, French to Portuguese, and so on. Okay, just again as an example, I'm sharing over here the association search engine for language pairs. So over here, you're gonna basically click, the language for your documents, and then they are gonna provide you with a matching sworn translator. Okay, Assim, the second question, in your experience, if an investment of 180,000 plus US dollars has been made, have foreign investors been given the passport in the 3-year timeline? Kindly share your experience on citizenship time. Well, actually, the fastest you could potentially get, you would be 4 years after living in Brazil under the residency through real estate. Okay, there are a couple of interpretations. A first interpretation is like once you buy the property, you get the residency. You need to stay for 4 years to get the actual permanent residency, and an additional 4 years for you to apply for the citizenship. Nowadays, most people or many people, they are getting the citizenship with just 4 years. Okay, it looks like the Brazilian immigration is being more lenient, and instead of actually enforcing the 4 years of permanent residency, they say, you know what, the first 4 years of the residency visa, they are not permanent, but for all the purposes, we're gonna treat these first 4 years as it was a permanent residency, right? So that's what we see going on. After 4 years, people are going to apply for the Brazilian citizenship, and as long as they have, they have clean criminal records, as long as they have spent at least 3 years out of 4 years in Brazil. Maybe that's why you're saying 3 years, but it's 3 years out of 4 years after applying. And so clean records, the 4 years, and keeping the property. By the way, you can't just apply and sell the property. You still need to have the property, and you need to speak at least intermediary Portuguese, right? These are the main requirements. There may be some other smaller requirements, but these are the main ones, okay, Yasin? So nowadays, it's almost like a standard for immigration attorneys to say that, yes, you can get the citizenship in 4 years, right? Although technically, we still see as it should be 4 years of, temporary residency, and then you get the 4 years of permanent residency, and only then you should be able to apply for the citizenship. But if the immigration thinks 4 years of any residency through purchase of real estate is good, of course, you should take advantage of the Brazilian immigration interpretation and apply with 4 years of purchasing the qualifying real estate and securing, right? Like it's not just buying, but you need to secure the residency. And when you secure the residency, that's when the clock starts to count. Okay, Keith. Well, all right, Keith. Is there a way to get residency, whether by retirement visa or golden visa, with aim to get citizenship, but not have a global income tax during the residency by staying less than 183 days per year until citizenship? Okay, so I think that this is not going to be a possibility, Keith, because just like I was telling Asin, if you're gonna go for the citizenship, you need to stay 3 years out of 4 years. Okay, so you buy the property, and then you're gonna need to stay in Brazil for 3 years out of 4 years, and this is not going to allow you to play the 183 day per year strategy, right? So this card is not going to work. I mean, this card is going to work just fine if you want to, keep your, for instance, retirement visa. But this is not going to allow you to qualify. It's not going to allow you to qualify for the citizenship. So in theory, you could, work with both the, golden visa or the retirement visa. But because you're not staying the 3 years out of 4 years, you're not going to get the citizenship. But yes, you could potentially avoid, like the global income taxation. And that's why some people, they choose never to become a Brazilian citizen, basically because, like they're going to get one of those visas, but they are going to stay no more than 183 days per year in order to avoid the global taxation. All right, let's see what else we have. Asin is commenting. Okay, I was under the impression that through the Viper program, only 30 days per year was the requirement for Viper program. Yeah, so we're talking about two different things here, right? One thing is going to be how long you need to stay in Brazil to keep your Viper alive. Okay, that's one thing. And there's another thing which was addressed by your prior question. How long must I stay in Brazil to qualify for the citizenship, right? So these are two different things. One thing is for you to maintain your Viper. Another thing is for you to migrate from a Viper to citizenship. So the standards here are going to be different. And the standard for you to keep the Viper is actually not like 30 days per year. Is actually substantially less, is actually 14 days for every couple of years, okay? They could say 7 days per year, but that's not what they say. They say 14 days for every couple of years, meaning that if you come to Brazil and you stay for 15 days, in theory, these 15 days are gonna cover you for the current year and the next year. Okay, so that's why they say 14 days for every 2 years, because you don't need to keep coming 1 week per year. You can come for a couple of weeks and cover 2 years at a time, and that's for you to maintain the Viper. But again, what you need to maintain the Viper is not the same thing that you're gonna need to achieve the citizenship. I hope that makes sense. Royland Walker, welcome back, Royland. Royland is coming here, I know, for a few live streams. As of now, Dana Covington. Dana, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've been here before. If that's the case, welcome back, Dana. My brother once overstayed his visa waiver in Brazil and stayed there for over a year. Since he stayed in Brazil illegally, would this affect my chance to get a Viper visa? Not at all, Dana. And I understand the question, particularly in immigration, like in the United States. They usually look at family links to try to understand how the person is going to perform in the future. But as far as we know, Brazil is not going to penalize you, because that's actually a concept that comes from like criminal law, but it does have like some impact in immigration. You cannot pay for someone else's mistake, okay? So that's pretty settled in Brazilian immigration. If you have like that's a variation of another question we heard before, like, I have a sibling, my sibling committed like a serious crime. Is this going to preclude me from achieving whatever immigration benefits you are looking for? And the answer is almost certainly no. This is not going to have any impact. You cannot pay for someone else's mistake. All right, Dana. So No concerns there, no concerns. Even if your brother, right? Brazilian immigration is usually lenient. Current administration is actually making it a little bit less lenient. But even your brother, like if your brother waits enough time, and if he comes back to Brazil and pay his fines, I mean, he should be good to apply for something like the Viper. All right. So even if your brother is able to get a Viper, right? Like, I mean, there shouldn't be anything precluding you, Dana, from achieving, the Viper visa whenever you apply for it. All right, let's see. Okay, let's see if we have any other topics of interest. As a reminder, if you are watching our live stream, please like the live stream so other people can find it. Either now or later, okay? The likes, they do help the content to become more easy to find, right? For other people interested in the topics that we are discussing right now. All right. So in the meantime, I did share about some topics of interest. Dana, this is my first time here. Thanks for the response. Love the concept. You're welcome, Dana. I'm sure we had other Danas. Thank you for clarifying. It's your first time here. I hope it's not going to be the last. Okay, Dana, you are welcome. As we usually tell our friends here at the channel, the idea is to share knowledge about, Brazilian immigration, Brazil real estate, and other topics of interest. And when you bring your questions, your experience, you do help not only yourself to get an answer, but other people who are watching the channel, they are going to learn from your experience, right? It's good to learn from your experience. Is even better to learn from other people's experiences and mistakes. And here is the concept, to learn together, okay? Since we are talking about real estate, you guys probably know that the U.S. dollar has becoming stronger and stronger against the Brazilian currency during the last several weeks. Let me see if I can pull up some type of information on that front. Yeah, so last week, like the US dollar was being exchanged, at least in theory, right? Because when you try to sell your US dollar, you never get such a rate. But still, whatever you're getting, it's related to the reference, right? And the reference number was 5.26, 5 reais and 26 cents of reais per dollar, right? Like, I mean, this number, I'm going to think, like it's one of the highest amounts of the last few years, if I'm not mistaken. So naturally, there is a big uptick in people considering buying real estate in Brazil, because right now the same number of US dollars, right, it's buying much more than it was buying like a month before. So if you are like on the fence, if you are like, still deciding if you're going to do it or not, there is an uptick in people considering the Viper, basically because with the same amount of money, you are going to buy more real estate. And in parallel, Brazilian economy is kind of under control, but it is so far from being an economy like the U.S. with a tiny like unemployment rate, right? and a lot of money circulating through the economy. So a really good moment in time for foreign citizens, particularly from the U.S. or other economies like with a strong currency, to consider buying property in Brazil. 5 reais and 26 cents of reais. That was one of the reference exchange rates from last week. So naturally, a lot of people, really excited about buying their first property in Brazil. All right, another follow-up question from Dana. Have you ever helped anyone purchase property in Manaus, and would this be a good place for a foreigner to live? Yes, we did help with other transactions in Manaus. We have one transaction as we speak, okay, and this is like a foreign citizen who had a relationship with a Brazilian. He bought the property. Relationship didn't work. He doesn't want to know about the Amazon anymore. Now he's actually in Ceará, and we are assisting with selling the property. So not just the transaction, but now we are assisting with the sale, right? Like, so we retain a couple of realtors in the area. We make sure that the property is staged for a good sale. We make sure that there is no risk to the property, because in Brazil and nowadays even in the United States, right? Like there was news about squatters like in I think it was in Beverly Hills, right? Like squatters, like they're gonna enter like a mansion and they are gonna start to live over there under a fake lease, right? So even in Beverly Hills, right? So what you expect in Brazil? So in Brazil, whenever we have a client trying to sell a property, we're gonna make sure that there is someone in the property during the time of sale, unless it's an apartment, right? Like if it is an apartment in Rio de Janeiro or Fortaleza, São Paulo, no worries. But if it is an actual house, we are always concerned that squatters could break into the house and start to live over there. And to remove a squatter, just like in the United States, this could take potentially like a year, right? So we don't want that to happen. So we do assist in terms of protecting the assets of our clients when we are assisting with a sale. Going back to your question, if I think this is a good place for a foreigner to live, I think, for one to live in Manaus, you should have some specific reason to live in Manaus. Manaus is not like a super livable capital. It is like the capital of the Amazonas state, not the Amazon, right? The Amazonas. In the Amazon, there are multiple states, and one of the states in the Amazon, it's going to be Amazonas, okay? Almost the same thing, but there is a distinction. There is a state named Amazonas, and the capital for Amazonas is Manaus. So Manaus, like there is a horrible traffic. You're not going to have access like to, quality services. If you're going to buy things, almost everything is going to come from different states. So the cost for goods is going to be higher than what you would pay, I don't know, even in Rio de Janeiro, because again, things are being brought by either ship or, like planes, and they're not really roads, leading to Manaus. And so there should be a strong reason, right? Like when I see people living in Manaus, usually it's going to be because of, like a romantic partnership. Is going to be because of a business, or if someone is doing, I don't know, like scientific research, in the rainforest, something that's going to explain, Dana, why you would live in Manaus. Now, if you tell me, well, I don't need to necessarily live in Manaus, I could live like in a smaller town, then this would change dramatically, because then you could be living a very different experience. Like you could enjoy staying in a smaller town with access to the rainforest, and it's of course it's a huge experience, right? But Manaus, again, it's like you living in a city that's not like the best capital to live in. But if you say not really Manaus, but some smaller town in the area, then I think it would make more sense, at least from my perspective. I do travel every now and then to Amazon. Like I don't like Manaus too much. Like just the capital is not really attractive in any specific or special way. But if you travel from Manaus to smaller cities, right? And there is a bunch of cities that people are going to recognize by name. I'm going to just write down some of the names over here, all right? In Amazonas, you will find very interesting cities such as Maués. Maués is known as the city of Guaraná. Guaraná, for those who have tried, it's like a drink we have as soda, but of course, like people from the Amazon states, they usually have not the soda; they are gonna have the real thing. So they crush this type of seed and they mix it up with water or sometimes coffee, and it does like it's almost like coffee. It has a higher percentage of caffeine, but it does have other properties, and people love Guaraná, right? So Maués is the city, is known as the capital of Guaraná. There is also Parintins, Carnival of the Boi. All right, like I'm trying to explain, like in Parintins, there is a special type of carnival party, but it's not the carnival like we have in Rio de Janeiro. It's like the population is going to be organized in two different teams, and each team is going to have a boy, right? A boy is gonna be a bull, right? And these bulls, they are gonna fight each other, and sometimes they have like the actual animal, the actual bull, and sometimes they are gonna have like representations. People are gonna dress as a bull. It's something very cultural of the state. But Parintins is known as the capital of the Carnival of the Boi. Right, so I just gave you a couple of names for you to research, but there are literally like hundreds of smaller cities in the Amazon that could make your experience of living in the Amazon much more interesting than living in Manaus. And if you need to travel to Manaus, you could do that maybe once a month or every other month, because yes, like if you're living in the smaller cities, then probably you're not going to have access to everything that you need to live in the Amazon. So, I know, I have friends and even family members, okay, living in the Amazon. And whenever they have like a major need related to health, or they need to buy something special, they are going to need to travel to Manaus to buy those things, or to have like a more relevant like health exam or so on. Okay, I hope that helps, Dana, and keep the questions and comments coming. Ronnie, I have found a home I like, but my bank in the US will not let me wire money while in Brazil, nor will they let me schedule an international wire for an advance date. Do you have an escrow type of service? Yes, we do assist clients in your situation every single week, right? And what Ronnie is sharing is kind of surprising to many people, but to bring money into Brazil, it's a super pain in the neck. Just like, red tape and bureaucracy across the board, it's not a surprise that Brazil is going to make it difficult for people to bring money into Brazil. which in my opinion is a type of crazy, because you want people bringing money to Brazil, but Brazil doesn't really care. Like when Brazil needs to decide between common sense and red tape, Brazil is going to go with red tape and bureaucracy every time, probably because of historical reasons. But listen, we work with currency exchange, and every single week we're going to be fighting with currency exchange banks to approve a transaction. So it's not just like paperwork, but the banks are usually going to make it difficult for foreign citizens to bring money into the country. So yes, that's a pretty common thing, Ronnie. And it's not just about your bank allowing the wire to come to Brazil, but I would say that an even a bigger challenge is going to be for the Brazilian bank to complete the compliance process and release your monies, right? But because the U.S. bank knows about the compliance difficulties, and not only that, also the scams that exist in Brazil, guess what? The U.S. bank is going to say, listen, I don't want to get in trouble, right? If you want to send your money to Brazil, I want to see you here in person at least, because then, you know, there is I'm like in a safer position. If you do something crazy with your money, you're not going to say, well, you sent my money to Brazil, I wasn't even there. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of reducing the risk from the financial institution perspective. Okay, Ronnie? But yes, that's something we do assist every single week. Another follow-up question from Ronnie: is this a problem because the seller will have full payment before closing? Well, when we are handling the currency exchange, we actually try to emulate an escrow, because we're gonna have your money parked at the currency exchange bank. You're still sending the money to the seller, all right? You don't send the money to our firm. It's always to the seller. But because the money is gonna pass through a currency exchange bank, the currency exchange bank is going to park the money, and they are not going to release the money to the seller until you give the green light for such to happen, right? So this way, we kind of emulate an escrow, because at least the money is not going to be sent to the seller until the day of the closing, okay? So basically, you are reducing the time gap between money hitting the seller's bank account and the seller signing the deed of sale. All right, Ronnie. Okay. Fly Out Chase. Hello, Fly Out. Olá, Luciano. Just want to thank you for your advice. I was able to get my CPF at the consulate here in Atlanta. Very happy, Fly Out. That's a great accomplishment. Congratulations, you're gonna need this Brazilian tax ID known as a CPF for so many things. Congratulations. Dana, how amazing response. Glad to be helpful, Dana. Also, some of my friends got racially profiled when applying for residency in Argentina. Does the exact same thing happen in Brazil, or is Brazil more racially accepting? Well, yeah, I mean, I can't comment much on Argentina. I mean, I'm not a lawyer in Argentina. I've been to Argentina more times than I could count. And they do have like there is a higher percentage of white people in Argentina. So in theory, like people who are not white could stand up more, just because there are more white people in Argentina. Brazil is more balanced, right? I would say, like, although most Brazilians, right? Like, I mean, I know better than to say that I look like a white person, but most people in Brazil, even if they have a darker tone of skin than I do, they are gonna say that they are white, right? So I think that in Brazil, the perception is like, everybody kind of looks the same, or everybody's the same. They're not really, white people per se. So Brazil does not do that, at least, I mean, not officially, okay? They could potentially, write in your profile, like, I mean, this is I don't know, like a Latino. This is like an African American people. And by the way, we don't use this terminology in Brazil. African American. There are two different terms that we use. And it's always changing, so I'm always trying to pay attention so I don't use a term that's no longer acceptable. But usually we would say preto, okay, a black person, or we would say a negro, right? Which, like when, for instance, they hear negro, and it sounds like the N word, right? So negro is not like exactly the same as the N word, but negro, it has been historically accepted, and many people are gonna say, like, don't call me black, call me negro, all right? And some people are saying, don't call me negro, call me black, and then But what I'm saying is, like, in Brazil in general, people are less conscious of such differences. Okay, nowadays I think there is one of the good things from the left wing. Politics is like acceptance, is like empowerment of real minorities, right? Like, I mean, nowadays everybody's becoming a minority, but one of the things I see from the left wing politics is like to empower people who historically has been marginalized by the powers, right? And I think that in Brazil, maybe like the United States, right? Like there is no such a level of prejudice anymore. So I don't think, Dana, that in Brazil, any of your friends are going to be racially profiled. There is still, some level of a prejudice everywhere. So I just hope you don't have this experience. But if I had to, have a short answer for you, I think that if you did face such problem in Argentina, you will not face such problem in Brazil. All right, now we are about an hour into our live stream. We're gonna take an additional couple of questions, and then we're gonna be back on Wednesday. All right, like if you go to our YouTube page, the Wednesday live stream is already scheduled. All you need to do is to go over there and click on notify me. Okay, just click on notify me, and then before the live stream starts, you're gonna get a message, and then you're not gonna forget about the live stream. All right. Please also give me your like here on the live stream, because then it makes easier for other people to find this content. All right, Sean Conroy. Hello, Sean. Welcome back. Sean says, hello, Mr. Oliveira. Thank you for the valuable information. Is it possible to buy a property or retirement visa and still not be exposed to global income? Sean, so you could go both ways, right? Buy the property, get a retirement visa. The retirement visa per se, or buying a property, is not going to trigger. It's not going to trigger your tax residency in Brazil. What's going to trigger your tax residency is probably the time. Like when you spend more than 183 days per year in Brazil, you automatically become a tax resident. And then, yes, if you are a tax resident in Brazil, you're going to be exposed to global income, okay? So you can go both ways. Of course, you need more advisory on how to do that properly. But the answer is yes, don't stay longer than 183 days. A couple of other things to pay attention, and then you're not going to be exposed to global income. However, if you're going to stay in Brazil for good, no luck, you got to become a tax resident, okay? And sometimes we hear, well, in Portugal, like there is I think it's NHS, I don't recall the name of the program, but the program was intended to give like foreign citizens applying for, golden visa, for the retirement visa, for the G7, whatever visa you think, you would have like a type of a different tax treatment during the first 10 years. But guess what? Even Portugal, and that was last year, Portugal is no longer affording foreign citizens a special taxation regime. So Portugal closed the door. The idea is like if you are enjoying a country, guess what? You need to contribute at some level of taxes, and that's what Brazil is doing over here. Fly out Chase, I have a question for the 700,000 reais real estate investment visa for the Northeast. Can you still get it if it is 675, for example, due to the constant currency fluctuations? No, Fly out. They're pretty strict. Okay, so usually when we have clients buy property in the Northeast, we say, listen, let's go with 750. Okay, because if it's 700 and like something goes funky with the contract, with the realtor's commission, like we don't want to be like on a knife's edge. We want to have you with like a peace of mind. But if it is 675, then you're out of luck. Okay, you're not gonna get the visa. Now remember, Fly out, if you're getting a contract for the Viper, this contract is not gonna be in foreign currency. We don't have like real estate contracts in Brazil using foreign currency, although it could happen every now and then. But I would say 98% of the time, or 99, it's gotta be like a contract in Brazilian currency. So if the contract says 700,000, it does not matter how much currency fluctuation you are gonna go through. The price in Brazilian reais are still gonna be the same. Dana, thank you for the responses. I greatly appreciate it. Everyone liked the stream. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate it. Sean, thank you. It is possible to arrange a consultation with your firm and a tax expert at the same time to determine how U.S. retirement accounts will be taxed as a resident. Yeah, Sean, like most of the time we have, a combination of, visa and taxation matters. Most of the taxation matters we can answer during the consultation. If it is something more advanced, such as determine like different types of accounts, nobody's going to do that in a single consultation. They are going to charge you for somewhat tax planning, okay? And then you can have like every single type of income and like an estimate of the tax load you would pay for it. And that could be relevant information for you to pull the trigger or not, right? Like you don't want to pull the trigger first and then figure things out later. So the tax planning component is very helpful from this perspective, so you can make an informed decision when it comes to the taxes. All right, Bill, lots of thumbs up from Bill. Fly Out Chase is saying muito obrigado. Thank you guys for showing up on this Sunday. We did cover a lot of interesting subjects. I did have a good time with you guys. I hope you did have a good time with me as well. We're going to meet again on Wednesday. You guys have a blessed rest of your day and a great week coming as tomorrow. You take care.